Good evening, Taylor Elwood here, and today I thought I would talk about a very interesting topic that came up the other day in the Magical Experiments Facebook group. On there, I asked people what some challenges were, and one of the members said, one of the challenges that I'm having right now is that I'm trying to figure out how and when to apply magic practically to my circumstances. She went on to say, I'm great with doing internal work, with doing devotional work, doing stuff to kind of help me get to a certain space or frame of mind. That stuff comes easy. But there's the question of whether I should actually go and try and apply magic to make some big changes in my life. And I thought that was an interesting thing, and I really resonated with it because sometimes I've been in that same space, believe it or not. So I've always been an advocate of practical magic, but I would say actually that sometime within the last few years I've definitely had moments where I've kind of asked myself, well, should I apply magic to this circumstance? Do I really need it? Or should I just kind of just see how things play out? At one time, it would be fair to say that whenever I had a problem come in my way, out would come the practical magic, and I'd go and do what I could to solve that practical problem. I'm not saying or that problem. I'm not saying it always worked, but I would say most of the time it did. However, one of the things that I ended up finding was that a lot of times I would solve the problem, and then down the line a similar problem would rear up, and I would ask myself, well, why am I continuing to encounter these problems? Why am I continuously having these situations come up that I'm having to solve with magic? And I realized that a significant part of it was because the problem had something in common. It had me in common. And that in and of itself changed my approach to practical magic because I began to really look at what I was trying to do and where I was coming from with my magical work. And I realized that significantly, by taking the time to do internal work and to work through how I was showing up in the situations where I was needing to use magic, I could actually significantly cut down on the amount of magical work that I needed to do for practical resolutions. Because in making those changes, I ended up essentially course correcting my life in a way that allowed me to resolve that. But that's a reactive use of practical magic. And so it makes sense that if we're working through those issues where we're playing a role in the problems that we have, that as a result, we would significantly cut down on the amount of magical work that we needed to do. And that's what I found. I think, though, that in a situation where we're looking at applying practical magic toward just achieving something in our lives, whether it's helping us find a new job or helping us make something possible that otherwise wouldn't have been possible, in other words, doing proactive magic, I think then this also becomes a question. Well, A, do I really want this change in my life? And B, if I do want this change in my life, what am I willing to do and what am I willing to pay for that particular change? What I found is that when it comes to applying practical magic to your life, it is definitely worthwhile to go about designing your life, as it were, with magical work. If you know there's something that you want to manifest in your life, I don't think there's anything wrong with going out there and doing practical magic in order to accomplish that thing. The real thing you have to ask yourself is, how long are you willing to go without that desired result you want to manifest? And at the same time, conversely, are you willing to deal with the consequences of achieving that desired result? A lot of times what I find is that people will end up settling for circumstances that they're in because they're used to those circumstances. And so when the idea of applying magic to practically change your life becomes intimidating, I call this settling the comfortable discomfort. And what I mean by that is that you might feel some discomfort in your life, but you're so used to it that the idea of changing it becomes more uncomfortable than actually settling and living with it. Well, here's the thing. When we all, to some degree or another, fear change in our lives. This is a natural response because when there is change, there is not always the element of control. Whereas we can give ourselves the illusion of control, feeling like we're in control of our circumstances by settling for that uncomfortable discomfort. What I always recommend is that if you know what you truly want, then do your magical work for it. But recognize that, yes, you are inviting change into your life. You're inviting a fundamental shift to your identity. And if that's something that you truly want, then it has to be worth that change to you because you are choosing to make that change. What's important is that you try to live your life on your own terms as much as possible. I mean, that is, in a very real sense, what I think of when I think about practicing magic and applying it to my life or applying it to anything else. I am choosing to live magic I am choosing to use magic to leverage my life, to leverage a living life on my terms, as opposed to simply allowing life to happen to me. Again, I'm not going to always guarantee that everything's going to work out the way you want to, but this is where a process approach to magic actually works out, because then you can actually go, and if you do a magical working and it doesn't produce the result you want, or you just don't get what you want, you can start to look at it and start figuring out, well, where did things go wrong? Why didn't things work out the way I wanted to? What do I need to start changing here in order to manifest the desired result that I want? I also, at the same time, think it's really worthwhile to pay close attention to what you truly want. What's fascinating for me is that when I went the route of going back to work because, well, things just didn't work out with the self-employment biz, I ended up getting the job that I needed. I ended up getting a basically a customer support job. Not exactly the most glamorous of jobs. Some people might say, well, Taylor, why didn't you do magic to get something better? I'll tell you, I did actually do some magical work. It didn't really pan out. And I began to ask myself, well, why isn't it panning out? Why am I not getting, like a technical writer role? And what was fascinating is that I came to realize that even though I wasn't working the most glamorous job, I was working the job that actually provided me the most amount of freedom and gave me enough time to focus on the other things that were truly important to me. Because for me, what's really important is exploring my career as a writer at this point. It's not the kind of work that I work at during the day. It's actually doing what I feel truly called to do magically and mundanely in my life. And so what ended up happening is I realized along the way, well, actually, this job works out perfectly. It aligns with what I need. It provides enough income to pay the bills and meet the needs that I have. And at the same time, it's not burning me out on writing. I'm not spending all day doing technical writing and not wanting to write when I get home. If anything, I come home and I want to write. I want to work on my projects, and I'm actually getting more done with my projects than I was when I was self-employed. I'm getting books put out there. I've, taken back the books from the previous publisher, and I've actually, as a result, been able to set it up so that I'm getting a steady income from those books, much steadier than I had before. And so it became an instance where when I looked at what the magical objective was, the magical objective was to basically find a job that was going to allow me to focus on what was truly important to me. I came to realize that if anything, what I had was working, and that the shifts that happened in my life was that I suddenly began to change the focus of my work when it came to what I was doing on my off time. I started writing during my lunchtime, for example, because that became more important to me. I started working on stuff after work. I started, of course, leveraging my weekends accordingly, but I also started working smarter with my time because obviously I still wanted time to do fun things. And so what ended up happening is that I, in taking over my books and starting to explore different options that I had never considered before, I began to explore the realm of audiobooks. I took over my books and started publishing them for myself and securing that larger, steadier amount of income. And right now I'm in the process of getting ready to relaunch my Magical Success series, where I'll be teaching a class each month, a monthly class where people get to vote for it. So it's one of those cases where I found that when I applied magic to my situation, what changed wasn't the the thing that I thought was going to change. Oh, I'm going to find a better job as a technical writer. No, what changed were the circumstances around my life that truly needed to change, which is what I was doing with my time and how I was leveraging my resources and efforts to get where I wanted to go. I'm seeing this slow but steady shift where I'm actually starting to generate more income as a result of what I'm doing. I'm getting more projects done. Things are coming together, and I'm starting to rebuild a very viable side income that might end up even coming to the point where it fully supports what I do and what I want to do. It's going to take a bit of time and effort, but it's coming together, and I'm finding that the magical work that I did really made that clear and leveraged my life. And I think a lot of times what people don't realize when it comes to magical work and applying it to your life is people want what I call Hollywood magic. They want to do magic where poof, presto, there's the pumpkin, and you're off to the castle, and you're doing your dance with the Prince Charming or Princess Charming or whoever, and everything's solved. That's Hollywood magic, my friends. It's not how magic works. Magic isn't a cure-all. It doesn't solve all of your problems. But when you apply magic to your life practically, it does leverage your life. And the thing you have to keep in mind is that when you're working magic, it's taking what's going on in here and here, as well as what you have obviously stated. And there are a lot of times where people are not fully in touch with what they are truly needing in here and here. And then they wonder why their magic is working the way that it is. It's because you're not fully in touch with who you are and what you truly want/need. And I think the key word there is need. We get focused on our wants, but what is it you really need? If you look at magic, when magic is most effective, it is most effective when you apply it toward what you need. And when you understand that, it fundamentally shifts and changes the way that you approach your magical work, because you're not going to just leverage your magic to just get something you want. You're going to really focus on your life and figure out, well, what is it that I need? If I want to change my career, well, what are the things around my career that need to be considered as well to get what I need if I'm going to apply practical magic toward that? And in my case, the real focus became, it's not about finding you a technical writer job, which is going to burn you out and keep you away from writing. It's about helping you turn this job, which was a contract opportunity, into a permanent full-time position where you're getting paid a bit better. But more importantly, you shift and change your focus of time toward working on the projects that you need to work on, and you start making more money that way. And you start shifting the changes that you start bringing changes into your life that allow you to gradually build this into a viable income stream that supports yourself. And that to me is very magical. When I look at where I was a year ago compared to where I was now, a year ago, I was in a place of despair. I was in a place where I had lost so much, and I felt like my life was just going to ruin because everything I'd worked for had not worked out. I'd really sabotaged myself very deeply. And lo and behold, a year later, I'm in a place where I have a full-time job. I'm living in a better place than I was living before. I have my books back under my name. I'm making steady money from them. And all of that came about as a result of mundane actions, but also magical actions. It came about by taking and applying magic to my life and leveraging it and trusting the magic to do the work. This is the other thing that we need to realize when we're doing practical magic. A lot of people get focused on this idea, well, when I'm doing magical work, I want to control everything, and I want it to set everything up and make it the perfect thing. It's not about perfection. It's about getting things done. And a lot of times what ends up happening with magical work that people don't realize is that magical work works in so many ways that are subtle that you aren't fully in control of. When you do magical work, you're going out there and you're putting this intent out there, and you're taking actions that you're taking, and you're putting it out there into the universe to manifest it. And at the same time, you're making those changes within yourself. And this is not something that is talked about enough in magical work. There's so many of these other magicians out there that don't talk about this, but it's very important to realize that when you're bringing these changes into your life, You're working on both the internal level and the external level, and you're aligning them together. And you're not fully in control of the process. People fall in love with this idea of being in control. Here's the thing about being in control. When you're in control, you actually basically are desiccating and removing the magic from your life, because you're so focused on achieving this one true thing that you're not opening yourself up to possibility. Well, where does magic work best? It works best with possibility. So yes, you do your magical work. You put things out there, and then you watch for the results. But don't just focus on the most immediate result. Look at the changes that occur in your life. Look at the subtleties of things as they come together and bring shifts and changes to the way you're doing what you're doing. That right there is going to be an indicator that your magic is working. And again, a lot of times people get so focused on the results, the obvious results, they miss the more subtle results, and they miss the fact that magic will show up in their life in unexpected ways. You know, magical work isn't about control. Magical work isn't even about results. It is about the journey. It is about the experience. And I know people will say, well, you wrote Process of Magic, and you're talking about how to go and look at magic as a process. Yes, I am, because magic is a process. But part of that process is also opening yourself up to the experience. So if you want to practically leverage magic in your life, one of the biggest hurdles you have to overcome is your own fear of change. You have to accept that change will happen, and it may happen in ways you don't expect. But if you truly want to invite change into your life, that's where you leverage magic. And if you don't, if you're just doing it for other purposes, I mean, there's nothing wrong with just doing magic for internal work to help yourself become a better person or anything like that. I do it all the time. But if that's the only purpose you're doing it for, then understand that and accept it. But even then, recognize that when you're doing it for internal work, and I say this as someone who's done internal work for so many years and had so many things happen along the way that have been so unexpected, recognize it's going to change your life in ways you don't expect. Don't try to control everything. Accept that what you're trying to do is to invite change into your life. Make it clear what the change is that you're looking for, but then open yourself up to letting it happen. You know, magic is, it's kind of like a roller coaster. You ride up and you're doing all the work, you're getting up to the edge, you get to the top, and then boom, you flow down and you're like, ah! It's kind of like what magic is. You're doing all that work, and then you release and you let it happen, and you're along for the ride. And if you're not ready for that ride, then yeah, changes are going to be a little scary. But if you're ready for the ride, yeah, there'll be some unexpected things. There'll be a few moments when your stomach lurches, but you're going to have fun and you're going to change your life. And that's when and how we apply magic to leverage magic to change our lives. When we trust it to do what it needs to do. When we do the work, we do the magical work, we specify the parameters, we do all the stuff that we need to do. And I am firmly for all of that. Let me be very clear about that. I'm still very much a process magician, but I'm also a believer in the experience and allowing the experience to speak to and through us. When we trust the experience, it will change our lives. When we trust what we're doing, it will shift who we are, and it will align us with where we need to be. We may not always initially like where we end up needing to be, but trust me when I tell you, it always works out. And I say that from experience because I've had so many different times in my life where I've done magical work where at first it didn't seem like things were working out the way I thought, and then boom, things worked out the way that they needed to. And so, if you trust that, it will work. You just need to do the work you need to do. All right, so that's my video. I thought I would share that, and feel free to drop some questions in the comments below, share your own thoughts, share your own experiences about this kind of work and what you've done and when you've leveraged magic to bring change into your life. And remember, folks, the biggest obstacle to applying magic to your life isn't the magic itself, it's you. If you're feeling like a part of you is afraid to do magical work, that is what's going to stop you from applying magical work to your life. That is what's going to stop you from leveraging it and using it to bring change to your life. So, trust yourself, trust your magical work, do what you got to do. try, know what the process is, know how magic works, but at the same time, open yourself to the experience. And when things happen, feel free to look back, figure out where things could have been improved on, what could have been done. Yes, always do that. But also, once it's done, it's done. Open yourself to the experience and let it happen and see where things take you. And don't focus on just the most obvious result. Focus on the subtle gradations of things as events align and things come together, because your life will change and does change when you open yourself up to the experience. When you close yourself off, you're going to keep yourself exactly where you're at because you're not ready. And that's what you're telling the universe, and it's what you're telling yourself. Okay, have a great evening, folks. Talk soon, and take care.